It was just before dawn when I launched my small aluminum boat into Mirror Lake. The world was silent, except for the soft creak of the oarlocks and the distant, lonely call of a loon somewhere across the water. The air was cool, the sky a pale grey blue, and the water was perfectly still, so still it reflected the trees and the rising light like polished glass. I'd been coming to this lake every summer since I was a kid, but that morning, something about it felt different. The silence wasn't peaceful. It felt heavy, almost watchful. I remember sitting there for a long moment before pushing off, the chill of the aluminum seat seeping right through my jeans. A faint layer of mist hovered just above the surface, curling and twisting as I began to row toward the center. My father used to tell me this lake was alive. He said that, if you were quiet enough, you could feel it breathe. Back then, I always thought he meant it poetically, a figure of speech. But that morning, as the mist clung to my boat, I started to wonder if he'd meant it literally. By mid-morning, the fog began to thicken. It wasn't a gentle mist anymore. It rolled in from the tree line like smoke, slow and deliberate, swallowing the reflection of the pines until all I could see was gray in every direction. The air turned cold and damp, and sound became strangely muffled, like the whole world was holding its breath. Even the small plunks of my paddle dipping into the water seemed softer, swallowed by the thickening mist. It was eerie, a feeling of complete isolation. I'd been fishing for about an hour or so, just drifting, when I noticed the bubbles. They were tiny at first, barely noticeable, but they were rising right beside the boat, in a neat little line. Every few seconds, another cluster would surface, perfectly spaced apart, as if timed. My first thought was logical. A school of fish stirring below, or maybe air escaping from weeds tangled on the lake bed. But as the minutes passed, the pattern didn't change. Same rhythm, same spot. It was like something underneath was breathing. I leaned over the side, my pulse starting to quicken as I stared down into the dark water. The fog had dimmed the daylight so much that the lake looked almost black. Curiosity got the better of me. I clicked on my small flashlight, the beam cutting through the mist like a blade. It hit the surface and sank deep, illuminating something pale just beneath the ripples. At first, I thought it was just a rock. But rocks don't float, and this thing wasn't moving with the current. It was completely still, just hovering there in the flashlight's glow. My heart hammered against my ribs as I realized it had the faint, unmistakable outline of a face. It wasn't detailed, not clear at all, but there was enough there to make my stomach twist into a knot. I blinked, and just like that, the pale shape vanished, swallowed by the darkness below. That's when the boat moved. It didn't drift, it jerked. Hard. The stern dipped so suddenly that water sloshed up over the sides, and I had to grab the edge to steady myself. My flashlight, slippery with condensation, slipped from my hand. It clattered against the aluminum hull and bounced into the water with a small, sickening splash. The light spun as it sank, its beam flickering wildly through the fog. A chaotic dance in the deep. And then, the bubbles stopped. A deep, penetrating chill ran down my spine. The air felt wrong-charged, like the moments right before a thunderstorm. The lake had gone utterly silent again, completely still. The only sound was my own breathing, shaky and uneven. Then, faintly, from somewhere far below, came a sound. It was like a long, drawn-out sigh, bubbling up through the water. I didn't wait to find out what it was. I yanked my line in, tossed my gear to the side, and scrambled for the motor. I yanked the cord. Nothing. The first pull failed. The second did too. My hands were slick with sweat, trembling as I tried again and again. Finally, the engine coughed to life, sputtering weakly at first. I jammed the throttle forward. The boat lurched through the fog, the wake spreading in widening rings that were immediately consumed by the gray. It felt like I'd been moving for an eternity, though I couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Every direction looked the same, endless mist and dark water. Just when I thought I was hopelessly lost, the fog thinned, revealing the faint, welcome outline of the dock. I nearly cried with relief. I cut the motor and let the boat drift the last few yards until it scraped softly against the shore. As I climbed out, my legs were shaking so badly I could barely stand. I turned to look back at the lake, and that's when I saw it. The lake had gone completely still again. No wind, no ripples. not even the faint sound of insects. And, right in the middle of it, just barely visible through the remaining fog, floated my bait bucket. It was slowly spinning in circles, as if being turned by an unseen hand. I stood there, staring at it for a long, long time. Then, without really knowing why, I whispered into the mist, "I'm sorry." The air seemed to move with that like a slow exhale, but maybe it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. When I finally packed up my truck and drove into town, I stopped at the diner for coffee, trying to steady my nerves. The local sheriff happened to be there, sipping his own coffee at the counter. When I mentioned the thick fog and the strange bubbles on the lake, his expression changed. He put his mug down and asked me if I'd been near the southern end. When I said yes, he nodded slowly. "Old Pete drowned there," he said quietly, his voice low. "About 20 years ago, he was out fishing alone, just like you, and dropped his net. Tried to dive down and get it back. Never came up." I didn't say anything. I just stared down into my coffee cup as the steam rose between us like another kind of fog. Before I left, the sheriff added one more thing. "Locals say when the mist rolls in like that, the lake breathes. Some think it's just the air and the temperature dropping. Others think it's Pete. Still down there, still waiting for someone to notice." That night, lying awake in my cabin, I couldn't shake the sound of that sigh from beneath the water. And sometimes, even now, when I close my eyes, I still see the reflection of the lake, calm gray, and rippling with the faint, steady rhythm of something that isn't quite alive, and isn't quite gone. Thank you so much for watching and listening to my story. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button and subscribe for more adventures into the unknown. Stay safe out there.